Over 400 years ago, King James VI of Scotland inherited the throne of England at a time when the Christian Church was deeply divided. Here at Hampton Court in 1604, he convened a conference of churchmen of all shades of opinion to discuss the future of Christianity in this country. The king agreed to commission a new translation of the Bible that was acceptable to all parties. This was to become the King James, or Authorized Bible, which next year will be exactly 4 centuries old. Acknowledged as a masterpiece of English prose and the most vivid translation of the Scriptures, the glorious language of this Bible has survived the turbulence of history and given many of us the most widely recognized and beautiful descriptions of the birth of Jesus Christ, which we celebrate today.
And so it was that, while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered.
And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were in the same country shepherds, abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night.
And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of heavenly hosts praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men.
While shepherds watch their flocks by night, or seated on the ground, the angel of the Lord came down, and glory shone around.
The King James Bible was a major cooperative endeavor that required the efforts of dozens of the day's leading scholars. The whole enterprise was guided by an interest in reaching agreement for the wider benefit of the Christian Church and to bring harmony to the kingdoms of England and Scotland. 400 years later, it is as important as ever to build communities and create harmony. And one of the most powerful ways of doing this is through sport and games.
Or play. Go, 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 go.
During this past year of abundant sporting events, I've seen for myself just how important sport is in bringing people together from all backgrounds, from all walks of life, and from all age groups. In the parks of towns and cities and on village greens up and down the country, countless thousands of people every week give up their time to participate in sport and exercise of all sorts, or simply encourage others to do so. These kinds of activity are common throughout the world and play a part in providing a different perspective on life.
Team. Go guys, go.
Apart from developing physical fitness, sport and games can also teach vital social skills. None can be enjoyed without abiding by the rules. And no team can hope to succeed without cooperation between the players. This sort of positive team spirit can benefit communities, companies, and enterprises of all kinds. As the success of recent Paralympics bear witness, a love of sport also has the power to help rehabilitate. One only has to think of the injured men and women of the armed forces to see how an interest in games and sport can speed recovery and renew a sense of purpose, enjoyment, and comradeship. Right around the world, people gather to compete under standard rules, and in most cases in a spirit of friendly rivalry. Competitors know that to succeed they must respect their opponents. Very often they like each other too. Sportsmen and women often speak of the enormous pride they have in representing their country, a sense of belonging to a wider family. We see this vividly at the Commonwealth Games, for example, which is known to many as the friendly games, and where I'm sure you have noticed that it is always the competitors from the smallest countries who receive the loudest cheers. People are capable of belonging to many communities, including a religious faith. King James may not have anticipated quite how important sport and games were to become in promoting harmony and common interests. But from the scriptures in the Bible which bears his name, we know that nothing is more satisfying than the feeling of belonging to a group who are dedicated to helping each other. Therefore, all things whatsoever you would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. I wish you and all those whom you love and care for a very happy Christmas. In this past year, my family and I have been inspired by the courage and hope we have seen in so many ways in Britain, in the Commonwealth, and around the world. We've seen that it's in hardship that we often find strength from our families. It is in adversity that new friendships are sometimes formed. And it's in a crisis that communities break down barriers and bind together to help one another. Families, friends, and communities often find a source of courage rising up from within. Indeed, sadly, it seems that it is tragedy that often draws out the most and the best from the human spirit. When Prince Philip and I visited Australia this year, we saw for ourselves the effects of natural disaster in some of the areas devastated by floods, where in January so many people lost their lives and their livelihoods. We were moved by the way families and local communities held together to support each other. Prince William travelled to New Zealand and Australia in the aftermath of earthquakes, cyclones and floods, and saw how communities rose up to rescue the injured, comfort the bereaved, and rebuild the cities and towns devastated by nature. The Prince of Wales also saw firsthand the remarkable resilience of the human spirit after tragedy struck in a Welsh mining community, and how communities can work together to support their neighbours. This past year has also seen some memorable and historic visits to Ireland and from America. The spirit of friendship, so evident in both these nations, can fill us all with hope. Relationships that years ago were once so strained have, through sorrow and forgiveness, blossomed into long-term friendship. It is through this lens of history that we should view the conflicts of today, and so give us hope for tomorrow. Of course, family does not necessarily mean blood relatives, but often a description of a community, organisation, or nation. The Commonwealth is a family of 53 nations, all with a common bond, shared beliefs, mutual values and goals. It is this which makes the Commonwealth a family of people in the truest sense. Nice to see you again. At ease with each other, enjoying its shared history, and ready and willing to support its members in the direst of circumstances. They have always looked to the future with a sense of camaraderie, warmth and mutual respect, while still maintaining their individualism. The importance of family has of course come home to Prince Philip and me personally this year, with the marriages of two of our grandchildren, each in their own way a celebration of the God-given love that binds a family together. For many, this Christmas will not be easy. With our armed forces deployed around the world, thousands of service families face Christmas without their loved ones at home. The bereaved and the lonely will find it especially hard. And as we all know, the world is going through difficult times. All this will affect our celebration of this great Christian festival. Finding hope in adversity is one of the themes of Christmas. Jesus was born into a world full of fear. The angels came to frighten shepherds with hope in their voices. Fear not, they urged, we bring you tidings of great joy, which will be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Saviour who is Christ the Lord. Although we are capable of great acts of kindness, history teaches us that we sometimes need saving from ourselves, from our recklessness or our greed. God sent into the world a unique person, neither a philosopher nor a general, important though they are, but a Saviour with the power to forgive. Forgiveness lies at the heart of the Christian faith. It can heal broken families, it can restore friendships, and it can reconcile divided communities. It is in forgiveness that we feel the power of God's love. In the last verse of this beautiful carol, O Little Town of Bethlehem, there's a prayer. O Holy Child of Bethlehem, descend to us, we pray. Cast out our sin and enter in, be born in us today. It is my prayer that on this Christmas day, we might all find room in our lives for the message of the angels and for the love of God through Christ our Lord. I wish you all a very happy Christmas. This past year has been one of great celebration for many. The enthusiasm which greeted the Diamond Jubilee was, of course, especially memorable for me and my family. It was humbling that so many chose to mark the anniversary of a duty which passed to me 60 years ago. People of all ages took the trouble to take part in various ways and in many nations. But perhaps most striking of all was to witness the strength of fellowship and friendship among those who had gathered together on these occasions. Prince Philip and I were joined by our family on the River Thames as we paid tribute to those who shaped the United Kingdom's past and future as a maritime nation, and welcomed a wonderful array of craft, large and small, from across the Commonwealth. On the barges and the bridges and the banks of the river, there were people who had taken their places to cheer through the mist, undaunted by the rain. That day was a tremendous sense of common determination to celebrate, triumphing over the elements. That same spirit was also in evidence from the moment the Olympic flame arrived on these shores. The flame itself drew hundreds and thousands of people on its journey around the British Isles and was carried by every kind of deserving individual, many nominated for their own extraordinary service. As London hosted a splendid summer of sport, all those who saw the achievement and courage at the Olympic and Paralympic Games were further inspired by the skill, dedication, training and teamwork of our athletes. In pursuing their own sporting goals, they gave the rest of us the opportunity to share something of the excitement and drama. We were reminded, too, that the success of these great festivals depended to an enormous degree upon the dedication and effort of an army of volunteers. Those public-spirited people came forward in the great tradition of all those who devote themselves to keeping others safe, supported, and comforted. For many, Christmas is also a time for coming together. But for others, service will come first. Those serving in our armed forces, in our emergency services, and in our hospitals, whose sense of duty takes them away from family and friends, will be missing those they love. And those who have lost loved ones may find this day especially full of memories. That's why it's important at this time of year to reach out beyond our familiar relationships, to think of those who are on their own. At Christmas, I'm always struck by how the spirit of togetherness lies also at the heart of the Christmas story. A young mother and a dutiful father, with their baby, were joined by poor shepherds and visitors from afar. They came with their gifts to worship the Christ child. From that day on, he has inspired people to commit themselves to the best interests of others. This is the time of year when we remember that God sent his only Son to serve, not to be served. He restored love and service to the center of our lives in the person of Jesus Christ. It is my prayer this Christmas Day that his example and teaching will continue to bring people together to give the best of themselves in the service of others. The carol, In the Bleak Midwinter, ends by asking a question of all of us who know the Christmas story, of how God gave himself to us in humble service. What can I give him, poor as I am? If I were a shepherd, I would bring a lamb. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. The carol gives the answer. Yet what I can, I give him. Give my heart. I wish you all a very happy Christmas. I once knew someone who spent a year in a plaster cast, recovering from an operation on his back. He read a lot and thought a lot and felt miserable. Later he realized this time of forced retreat from the world had helped him to understand the world more clearly. We all need to get the balance right between action and reflection. With so many distractions, it is easy to forget to pause and take stock. Be it through contemplation, prayer, or even keeping a diary, many have found the practice of quiet personal reflection surprisingly rewarding, even discovering greater spiritual depth to their lives. Reflection can take many forms. When families and friends come together at Christmas, it's often a time for happy memories and reminiscing. Our thoughts are with those we have loved who are no longer with us. We also remember those who, through doing their duty, cannot be at home for Christmas, such as workers in essential or emergency services. And especially at this time of year, we think of the men and women serving overseas in our armed forces. We are forever grateful to all those who put themselves at risk to keep us safe. Service and duty are not just the guiding principles of yesteryear. They have an enduring value which spans the generations. I myself had cause to reflect this year at Westminster Abbey on my own pledge of service made in that great church on Coronation Day 60 years earlier.
All this I promise to do.
Today we celebrate 60 years since that moment, 60 years of commitment.
The anniversary reminded me of the remarkable changes that have occurred since the coronation, many of them for the better, and of the things that have remained constant, such as the importance of family, friendship, and good neighborliness. But reflection is not just about looking back. I and many others are looking forward to the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow next year. The baton relay left London in October and is now the other side of the world, on its way across 70 nations and territories, before arriving in Scotland next summer. Its journey is a reminder that the Commonwealth can offer us a fresh view of life. My son Charles summed this up at the recent meeting in Sri Lanka. He spoke of the Commonwealth's family ties that are a source of encouragement to many.
Each one of us is here because of the hope and the trust we place in the Commonwealth to bring that touch of healing to our troubles and deliver the very best future for our people.
Like any family, there can be differences of opinion, but however strongly they're expressed, they are held within the common bond of friendship and shared experiences. Here at home, my own family is a little larger this Christmas. As so many of you will know, the arrival of a baby gives everyone the chance to contemplate the future with renewed happiness and hope.
So far, so good.
For the new parents, life will never be quite the same again. As with all who are christened, George was baptized into a joyful faith of Christian duty and service.
And 1, 2, 3. Really nice. Okay, so here we go.
After the christening, we gathered for the traditional photograph.
Smiling is very good. 1, 2, 3. Straight to me. Good.
George.
That's great.
Good boy.
Okay, straight to the lens. 1, 2, 3. Really nice.
It was a happy occasion, bringing together 4 generations. In the year ahead, I hope you will have time to pause for moments of quiet reflection. As the man in the plaster cast discovered, the results can sometimes be surprising. For Christians, as for all people of faith, reflection, meditation, and prayer help us to renew ourselves in God's love as we strive daily to become better people. The Christmas message shows us that this love is for everyone. There is no one beyond its reach. On the first Christmas, in the fields above Bethlehem, as they sat in the cold of night watching their resting sheep, the local shepherds must have had no shortage of time for reflection. Suddenly, all this was to change. These humble shepherds were the first to hear and ponder the wondrous news of the birth of Christ, the first Noel, the joy of which we celebrate today. I wish you all a very happy Christmas. In the ruins of the old Coventry Cathedral is a sculpture of a man and a woman reaching out to embrace each other. The sculpture was inspired by the story of a woman who crossed Europe on foot after the war to find her husband. Casts of the same sculpture can be found in Belfast and Berlin, and it is simply called reconciliation. Reconciliation is the peaceful end to conflict, and we were reminded of this in August, when countries on both sides of the First World War came together to remember in peace. The ceramic poppies at the Tower of London drew millions, and the only possible reaction to seeing them and walking among them was silence. For every poppy, a life, and a reminder of the grief of loved ones left behind. No one who fought in that war is still alive, but we remember their sacrifice, and indeed the sacrifice of all those in the armed forces who serve and protect us today. In 1914, many people thought the war would be over by Christmas. But sadly, by then, the trenches were dug and the future shape of the war in Europe was set. But as we know, something remarkable did happen that Christmas, exactly 100 years ago today. Without any instruction or command, the shooting stopped and German and British soldiers met in no man's land. Photographs were taken and gifts exchanged. It was a Christmas truce. Truces are not a new idea. In the ancient world, a truce was declared for the duration of the Olympic Games, and wars and battles were put on hold. Sport has a wonderful way of bringing together people and nations, as we saw this year in Glasgow, when over 70 countries took part in the Commonwealth Games. It is no accident that they are known as the Friendly Games. As well as promoting dialogue between nations, the Commonwealth Games pioneered the inclusion of parasports within each day's events. As with the Invictus Games that followed, the courage, determination, and talent of the athletes captured our imagination, as well as breaking down divisions. The benefits of reconciliation were clear to see when I visited Belfast in June. While my tour of the set of Game of Thrones may have gained most attention, my visit to the Crumlin Road jail will remain vividly in my mind. What was once a prison during the Troubles is now a place of hope and fresh purpose. A reminder of what is possible when people reach out to one another, rather like the couple in the sculpture. Of course, reconciliation takes different forms. In Scotland, after the referendum, many felt great disappointment, while others felt great relief. And bridging these differences will take time. Bringing reconciliation to war or emergency zones is an even harder task. And I have been deeply touched this year by the selflessness of aid workers and medical volunteers who have gone abroad to help victims of conflict or of diseases like Ebola, often at great personal risk. For me, the life of Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, whose birth we celebrate today, is an inspiration and an anchor in my life. A role model of reconciliation and forgiveness, he stretched out his hands in love, acceptance, and healing. Christ's example has taught me to seek to respect and value all people of whatever faith or none. Sometimes it seems that reconciliation stands little chance in the face of war and discord. But as the Christmas truce a century ago reminds us, peace and goodwill have lasting power in the hearts of men and women. On that chilly Christmas Eve in 1914, many of the German forces sang Silent Night, its haunting melody inching across the line. That carol is still much loved today, a legacy of the Christmas truce, and a reminder to us all that even in the unlikeliest of places, hope can still be found. A very happy Christmas to you all. At this time of year, few sights evoke more feelings of cheer and goodwill than the twinkling lights of a Christmas tree. The popularity of a tree at Christmas is due in part to my great-great-grandparents, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. After this touching picture was published, many families wanted a Christmas tree of their own, and the custom soon spread. In 1949, I spent Christmas in Malta as a newly married naval wife. We have returned to that island over the years, including last month for a meeting of Commonwealth leaders. And this year, I met another group of leaders, the Queen's Young Leaders, an inspirational group, each of them a symbol of hope in their own Commonwealth communities. Gathering round the tree gives us a chance to think about the year ahead. I'm looking forward to a busy 2016, though I have been warned I may have happy birthdays sung to me more than once or twice. It also allows us to reflect on the year that has passed, as we think of those who are far away or no longer with us. Many people say the first Christmas after losing a loved one is particularly hard. But it's also a time to remember all that we have to be thankful for. It is true that the world has had to confront moments of darkness this year, but the Gospel of John contains a verse of great hope, often read at Christmas carol services. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. One cause for thankfulness this summer was marking 70 years since the end of the Second World War. On VJ Day, we honored the remaining veterans of that terrible conflict in the Far East, as well as remembering the thousands who never returned. The procession from Horse Guards Parade to Westminster Abbey must have been one of the slowest ever, because so many people wanted to say thank you to them. At the end of that war, the people of Oslo began sending an annual gift of a Christmas tree for Trafalgar Square. It has 500 light bulbs and is enjoyed not just by Christians, but by people of all faiths and of none. At the very top sits a bright star to represent the Star of Bethlehem. The custom of topping a tree also goes back to Prince Albert's time. For his family's tree, he chose an angel, helping to remind us that the focus of the Christmas story is on one particular family. For Joseph and Mary, the circumstances of Jesus' birth in a stable were far from ideal. But worse was to come as the family was forced to flee the country. It is no surprise that such a human story still captures our imagination and continues to inspire all of us who are Christians the world over. Despite being displaced and persecuted throughout his short life, Christ's unchanging message was not one of revenge or violence, but simply that we should love one another. Although it is not an easy message to follow, we shouldn't be discouraged. Rather, it inspires us to try harder, to be thankful for the people who bring love and happiness into our own lives, and to look for ways of spreading that love to others, whenever and wherever we can. One of the joys of living a long life is watching one's children, then grandchildren, then great-grandchildren help decorate the Christmas tree. And this year, my family has a new member to join in the fun. The customary decorations have changed little in the years since that picture of Victoria and Albert's tree first appeared. although, of course, electric lights have replaced the candles. There's an old saying that it is better to light a candle than curse the darkness. There are millions of people lighting candles of hope in our world today. Christmas is a good time to be thankful for them and for all that brings light to our lives. I wish you a very happy Christmas. There was a time when British Olympic medal winners became household names because there were so few of them. But the 67 medals at this year's Games in Rio and 147 at the Paralympics meant that the GB medalist reception at Buckingham Palace was a crowded and happy event. Throughout the Commonwealth, there were equally joyful celebrations. Grenada, the Bahamas, Jamaica, and New Zealand won more medals per head of population than any other countries. Many of this year's winners spoke of being inspired by athletes of previous generations. Inspiration fed their aspiration, and having discovered abilities they scarcely knew they had, these athletes are now inspiring others. A few months ago, I saw inspiration of a different kind when I opened the new Cambridge base of the East Anglian Air Ambulance, where Prince William works as a helicopter pilot. It was not hard to be moved by the dedication of the highly skilled doctors, paramedics, and crew who are called out on average 5 times a day. But to be inspirational, you don't have to save lives or win medals. I often draw strength from meeting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Volunteers, carers, community organizers, and good neighbors. Unsung heroes whose quiet dedication makes them special. They are an inspiration to those who know them, and their lives frequently embody a truth expressed by Mother Teresa, from this year, Saint Teresa of Calcutta. She once said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love." This has been the experience of 2 remarkable organizations, the Duke of Edinburgh's Award and the Prince's Trust, which are 60 and 40 years old this year. These started as small initiatives, but have grown beyond any expectations and continue to transform young people's lives. To mark my 90th birthday, volunteers and supporters of the 600 charities of which I have been patron came to a lunch in the Mall. Many of these organizations are modest in size, but inspire me with the work they do. From giving friendship and support to our veterans, the elderly or the bereaved, to championing music and dance, providing animal welfare, or protecting our fields and forests. Their selfless devotion and generosity of spirit is an example to us all. When people face a challenge, they sometimes talk about taking a deep breath to find courage or strength. In fact, the word inspire literally means to breathe in. But even with the inspiration of others, it's understandable that we sometimes think the world's problems are so big that we can do little to help. On our own, we cannot end wars or wipe out injustice. But the cumulative impact of thousands of small acts of goodness can be bigger than we imagine. At Christmas, our attention is drawn to the birth of a baby some 2,000 years ago. It was the humblest of beginnings, and his parents, Joseph and Mary, did not think they were important. Jesus Christ lived obscurely for most of his life and never traveled far. He was maligned and rejected by many, though he had done no wrong. And yet billions of people now follow his teaching and find in him the guiding light for their lives. I am one of them because Christ's example helps me see the value of doing small things with great love, whoever does them, and whatever they themselves believe. The message of Christmas reminds us that inspiration is a gift to be given as well as received, and that love begins small but always grows. I wish you all a very happy Christmas. 60 years ago today, a young woman spoke about the speed of technological change as she presented the first television broadcast of its kind. She described the moment as a landmark.
Television has made it possible for many of you to see me in your homes on Christmas Day. My own family often gather round to watch television, as they are at this moment, and that is how I imagine you now.
6 decades on, the presenter has evolved somewhat, as has the technology she described. Back then, who could have imagined that people would one day be watching this on laptops and mobile phones, as some of you are today? But I'm also struck by something that hasn't changed. That whatever the technology, many of you will be watching this at home. We think of our homes as places of warmth, familiarity, and love, of shared stories and memories, which is perhaps why at this time of year so many return to where they grew up. There is a timeless simplicity to the pull of home. For many, the idea of home reaches beyond a physical building to a hometown or city. This Christmas, I think of London and Manchester, whose powerful identities shone through over the past 12 months in the face of appalling attacks. In Manchester, those targeted included children who had gone to see their favourite singer. A few days after the bombing, I had the privilege of meeting some of the young survivors and their parents. So you come especially for the concert, did you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The birthday present.
Oh, was it? Oh, right.
Very scary.
Very wicked.
Mm.
And, to target that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's awful, but hopefully they'll mend.
Yes.
We'll get
But
better.
it's very interesting how everybody is united, haven't they, here?
It's been amazing, really.
Mm. I described that hospital visit as a privilege because the patients I met were an example to us all, showing extraordinary bravery and resilience. Indeed, many of those who survived the attack came together just days later for a benefit concert. It was a powerful reclaiming of the ground and of the city those young people call home. We expect our homes to be a place of safety, sanctuary even, which makes it all the more shocking when the comfort they provide is shattered. A few weeks ago, the Prince of Wales visited the Caribbean in the aftermath of hurricanes that destroyed entire communities. And here in London, who can forget the sheer awfulness of the Grenfell Tower fire? Our thoughts and prayers are with all those who died and those who lost so much. And we are indebted to members of the emergency services who risked their own lives this past year, saving others. Many of them, of course, will not be at home today because they are working to protect us. Reflecting on these events makes me grateful for the blessings of home and family, and in particular for 70 years of marriage. I don't know that anyone had invented the term platinum for a 70th wedding anniversary when I was born. You won't expect it to be around that long. Even Prince Philip has decided it's time to slow down a little, having, as he economically put it, done his bit. But I know his support and unique sense of humour will remain as strong as ever as we enjoy spending time this Christmas with our family and look forward to welcoming new members into it next year. In 2018, I will open my home to a different type of family, the leaders of the 52 nations of the Commonwealth, as they gather in the UK for a summit. The Commonwealth has an inspiring way of bringing people together, be it through the Commonwealth Games, which begin in a few months' time on Australia's Gold Coast, or through bodies like the Commonwealth Youth Orchestra and Choir, a reminder of how truly vibrant this international family is. Today, we celebrate Christmas, which itself is sometimes described as a festival of the home. Families travel long distances to be together. Volunteers and charities, as well as many churches, arrange meals for the homeless and those who would otherwise be alone on Christmas Day. We remember the birth of Jesus Christ, whose only sanctuary was a stable in Bethlehem. He knew rejection, hardship, and persecution. And yet it is Jesus Christ's generous love and example which has inspired me through good times and bad. Whatever your own experience is this year, wherever and however you are watching, I wish you a peaceful and very happy Christmas. For many, the service of 9 lessons and carols from King's College, Cambridge, is when Christmas begins. Listened to by millions of people around the world, it starts with the chorister singing the first verse of Once in Royal David City. The priest who introduced this service to King's College Chapel exactly 100 years ago was Eric Milner White. He had served as a military chaplain in the First World War. Just 6 weeks after the armistice, he wanted a new kind of service, which, with its message of peace and goodwill, spoke to the needs of the times. 2018 has been a year of centenaries. The Royal Air Force celebrated its 100th anniversary with a memorable flypast, demonstrating a thrilling unity of purpose and execution. We owe them and all our armed services our deepest gratitude. My father served in the Royal Navy during the First World War. He was a midshipman in HMS Collingwood at the Battle of Jutland in 1916. The British fleet lost 14 ships and 6,000 men in that engagement. My father wrote in a letter, "How and why we were not hit beats me." Like others, he lost friends in the war. At Christmas, we become keenly aware of loved ones who have died, whatever the circumstances. But of course, we would not grieve if we did not love. Closer to home, it has been a busy year for my family. With 2 weddings and 2 babies and another child expected soon. It helps to keep a grandmother well occupied. We have had other celebrations too, including the 70th birthday of the Prince of Wales. Some cultures believe a long life brings wisdom. I'd like to think so. Perhaps part of that wisdom is to recognize some of life's baffling paradoxes, such as the way human beings have a huge propensity for good, and yet a capacity for evil. Even the power of faith, which frequently inspires great generosity and self-sacrifice, can fall victim to tribalism. But through the many changes I have seen over the years, faith, family, and friendship have been not only a constant for me, but a source of personal comfort and reassurance. In April, the Commonwealth heads of government met in London. My father welcomed just 8 countries to the first such meetings in 1948. Now the Commonwealth includes 53 countries with 2.4 billion people, a third of the world's population. Its strength lies in the bonds of affection it promotes and a common desire to live in a better, more peaceful world. Even with the most deeply held differences, treating the other person with respect and as a fellow human being is always a good first step towards greater understanding. Indeed, the Commonwealth Games, held this year on Australia's Gold Coast, are known universally as the Friendly Games because of their emphasis on goodwill and mutual respect. The Christmas story retains its appeal since it doesn't provide theoretical explanations for the puzzles of life. Instead, it's about the birth of a child and the hope that birth 2,000 years ago brought to the world. Only a few people acknowledged Jesus when he was born. Now, billions follow him. I believe his message of peace on earth and goodwill to all is never out of date. It can be heeded by everyone. It's needed as much as ever. A very happy Christmas to you all. As a child, I never imagined that one day a man would walk on the moon. Yet this year we marked the 50th anniversary of the famous Apollo 11 mission.
Still looking very good. Here go. The Eagle has landed.
As those historic pictures were beamed back to Earth, millions of us sat transfixed to our television screens as we watched Neil Armstrong taking a small step for man and a giant leap for mankind, and indeed for womankind. It's a reminder for us all that giant leaps often start with small steps. This year we marked another important anniversary, D-Day. On the 6th of June 1944, some 156,000 British, Canadian and American forces landed in northern France. It was the largest ever seaborne invasion and was delayed due to bad weather. I well remember the look of concern on my father's face. He knew the secret D-Day plans, but could of course share that burden with no one. For the 75th anniversary of that decisive battle, in a true spirit of reconciliation, those who had formerly been sworn enemies came together in friendly commemorations either side of the Channel, putting past differences behind them. Such reconciliation seldom happens overnight. It takes patience and time to rebuild trust, and progress often comes through small steps. Since the end of the Second World War, many charities, groups, and organizations have worked to promote peace and unity around the world, bringing together those who have been on opposing sides. By being willing to put past differences behind us and move forward together, we honor the freedom and democracy once won for us at so great a cost. The challenges many people face today may be different to those once faced by my generation, but I have been struck by how new generations have brought a similar sense of purpose to issues such as protecting our environment and our climate. My family and I are also inspired by the men and women of our emergency services and armed forces. And at Christmas, we remember all those on duty at home and abroad, who are helping those in need and keeping us and our families safe and secure. 200 years on from the birth of my great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, Prince Philip and I have been delighted to welcome our 8th great-grandchild into our family.
Of course, at the heart of the Christmas story lies the birth of a child, a seemingly small and insignificant step overlooked by many in Bethlehem. But in time, through his teaching and by his example, Jesus Christ would show the world how small steps taken in faith and in hope can overcome long-held differences and deep-seated divisions to bring harmony and understanding. Many of us already try to follow in his footsteps. The path, of course, is not always smooth, and may at times this year have felt quite bumpy, but small steps can make a world of difference. As Christmas dawned, church congregations around the world joined in singing "It Came Upon the Midnight Clear." Like many timeless carols, it speaks not just of the coming of Jesus Christ into a divided world many years ago, but also of the relevance, even today, of the angel's message of peace and goodwill. It's a timely reminder of what positive things can be achieved when people set aside past differences and come together in the spirit of friendship and reconciliation. And as we all look forward to the start of a new decade, it's worth remembering that it is often the small steps, not the giant leaps, that bring about the most lasting change. And so I wish you all a very happy Christmas.